My dad disappeared when I was 10. Last night, he called me from a number I shouldn't have answered. Let me explain why that number was impossible. My dad, Robert Calloway, vanished on a Tuesday morning in October 2001. No note. No fight. No warning. One day, he was flipping pancakes in his red flannel shirt, singing some off-key country song under his breath. The next morning, his truck was still in the driveway, his boots were still by the door, and he was just gone. The police called it a voluntary disappearance. My mom called it abandonment. I was 10 years old, and I called it the worst day of my life, a title it held for 23 years. I'm 33 now. I live alone in a small rental house in rural Oregon. I work remotely as a data analyst, I have a cat named Biscuit, and I have spent the better part of 2 decades convincing myself I don't care about a man who walked out of my life without even saying goodbye. I'm a pretty good liar when I need to be. Last night I was sitting on my porch with a beer, watching the tree line at the edge of my property, when my phone buzzed on the armrest beside me. Unknown number. Oregon area code, but one of those weird sequences that doesn't match any town I recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. I should have let it go to voicemail. But something made me pick up. Some dumb, deep animal instinct that I haven't been able to explain to myself since. Hello. Silence. Just static and something underneath it, a low hum, almost like wind moving through hollow wood. Hello. I said again, sharper this time. Who is this? Then a voice. Quiet. Rough around the edges. Like someone who hadn't spoken in a very long time. Jamie. My beer slipped out of my hand. Nobody calls me Jamie. Not anymore. I've gone by James since college, professionally, socially, everywhere. My mom stopped calling me Jamie after the grief counseling. My old friends from childhood had all drifted away. The only person who ever called me Jamie, who insisted on calling me Jamie even when I said I hated it, was my dad. Who is this? My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to. It's me. A pause. The wind through Hollywood sound again. I don't have long. Don't call this number back. Don't look up where it's registered. Just listen. My hands were shaking. I was standing now, without realizing I'd stood up. I need you to go to the old property, he said. The house on Siler Creek Road. There's something buried under the oak tree behind the shed. You need to find it before they do. Before who does? I whispered. Who are they? Who are you? But the line was already dead. I stood on my porch for a long time after that, phone pressed to my chest, heart slamming against my ribs. Then I did the thing he told me not to do. I looked up the number. It came back as unregistered. Untraceable. A deadline. And here's the part that broke something inside me, the part I've been sitting with all night, the part that made me open Reddit at 2 a.m. and start typing this out because I don't know what else to do. That number? The one he called from? It was my dad's original cell phone number. The one he had in 2001. The one that was disconnected and recycled by the carrier years ago. The one that, by every record that exists, has not been active for over 2 decades. I'm driving to Siler Creek Road in the morning. I don't know what I'm going to find. I don't know if that was really him. I don't know if I'm losing my mind or if my dad somehow, impossibly, is still out there. But I know that voice. And I know he called me Jamie. I didn't sleep. I tried. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling with Biscuit curled on my chest, listening to him purr like everything was fine, like my dead father hadn't just called me from an impossible phone number. At 4 a.m. I gave up, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open. I searched for the Siler Creek Road property. The house where I grew up, where my dad disappeared from, was sold by my mom in 2004. She couldn't keep up the payments alone and she couldn't stand living there anyway. I was 13 when we moved to Portland. I never went back. County records showed the property had changed hands twice since then. The last listed owner was a man named Gerald Pruitt, who bought it in 2014. But when I cross-referenced his name with current records, I found an obituary from 2019. Gerald Pruitt, 71, passed away at home. No surviving family listed. So the house had been sitting empty for 5 years. I left at 5:45 a.m. The drive from my place to Siler Creek Road is about 2 hours through increasingly narrow roads, the kind that start as highway and slowly shrink to 2 lanes, then 1, then something that's barely a suggestion of a road through tall Douglas firs. I'd done this drive in my memory 1,000 times. In dreams. In the half-awake space between sleep and morning. Doing it in real life felt like watching an old film reel come to life. The Siler Creek Road sign was still there, white letters on green, though the post was rusted and leaning at an angle. I turned onto the gravel road and drove slow, windows down, smelling the wet pine and creek water. The house appeared around a long bend. It was smaller than I remembered. They always are. But the bones were the same, white clapboard siding gone gray, a covered porch along the front, 2 windows upstairs that always looked to me like tired eyes. I parked at the edge of the overgrown driveway and sat in my car for a full minute. Then I got out. The property was quiet in that specific way that rural abandoned places are quiet, not peaceful, but hollow. Like the land is holding its breath. I walked around the side of the house without going in. I wasn't ready for that. Maybe I'd never be ready for that. The backyard was worse than I expected. The grass had gone wild, knee-high in places, and the old vegetable garden my mom used to keep was completely swallowed by weeds. A section of the back fence had collapsed. But the shed was still standing. And behind the shed, exactly where it had always been, was the oak tree. It was bigger than I remembered, of course it was, 23 years of growing, trunk wide and dark, roots pushing up through the soil in thick ridges around the base. When I was little I used to climb it. My dad taught me how to find the right branches, where to put my feet. You gotta trust the tree, Jamie. It's been here longer than either of us. It knows how to hold weight. I stood at the base of it and looked down. The soil between two of the largest roots was disturbed. Not freshly dug, but different from the surrounding ground. Settled in a way that said something had been placed there and the earth had slowly accepted it over time. Years, maybe. I went back to my car and got the small folding shovel I'd thrown in my trunk that morning, half hoping I wouldn't need it, half knowing I would. I started digging. 14 inches down, the shovel hit something solid. I crouched and used my hands, clearing the dirt away carefully. My fingers found edges. A box. Metal, from the feel of it, with a lid sealed with electrical tape that had hardened and cracked with age. I lifted it out and sat back on my heels. It was a lockbox. Gray metal, the size of a large hardcover book. The kind you can buy at any hardware store. There was no lock on it, just the sealed tape, and someone had written 2 words on the top in black marker, in handwriting I recognized immediately and completely, the way you recognize a voice you haven't heard in decades. For Jamie. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the tape off. Inside, wrapped in a plastic Ziploc bag that had kept out most of the moisture, were 3 things. First, a photograph. My dad and a man I didn't recognize, standing in front of what looked like a government building. Both in suits. My dad looked younger, maybe early 30s, and serious in a way I'd never seen him look in family photos. On the back, in that same handwriting, Harmon. 1994, don't trust him. Second, a USB drive. Black, no label. Third, a letter. 4 pages, handwritten, front and back. Dated October 14, 2001. 3 days before he disappeared. I sat in the dirt behind that shed for a long time with the letter in my hands before I could make myself read it. When I finally did, I read it 3 times. I'm not going to type out the full letter here. Not yet. Not until I understand more of what it means. But I'll tell you the parts that I can't stop thinking about. He wrote that he'd been working for a federal contractor since 1993. That the work was legitimate at first, environmental assessments, land surveys, federal land use documentation. That sometime around 1997, he realized the surveys he was filing were being altered before they reached the agencies they were meant for. That entire tracts of protected land were being quietly reclassified on paper while staying protected in public record. That someone was building a false map of the American Northwest, and that federal money was being funneled through the project to people whose names he recognized from places they shouldn't have been. He wrote that he tried to go to his supervisor. That his supervisor was one of the names on the list. He wrote that a man named Harmon, the man in the photograph, had come to the house while my mom and I were out one afternoon. That Harmon had been polite and calm and had told my dad, in a very reasonable voice, that people who raised questions about this project had a way of finding themselves in serious trouble. And then, and this is the part one keep returning to, he wrote. If you're reading this, Jamie, it means I ran out of options and I had to go. I need you to know that leaving you is the hardest thing I have ever done. I need you to know that I never stopped. And I need you to know that the work isn't finished, it was never finished, and if this letter found you, then something has changed and you might be the only one left who can finish it. Don't go to the police. Not local, not federal. Look for a woman named Ruth Ellison in Bend. Tell her your name and tell her the oak tree. She'll know what it means. Burn this letter after you memorize what you need. Don't keep the photo somewhere obvious. And Jamie. I'm sorry I called you Jamie when you probably go by James now. Old habit. I love you, son. I always did. I sat in that backyard for a long time. Then I folded the letter, put everything back in the Ziploc bag, and walked to my car. I didn't burn the letter. I know he said to, but I couldn't. I'm driving to Bend tomorrow to find Ruth Ellison. I don't know who she is. I don't know if she'll talk to me. I don't know if she's even still alive. But I know my dad left this for me on purpose. I know he called me somehow, impossibly, to make sure I found it in time. And I know that whatever he was running from in 2001 might still be running.